Hi.
Welcome to part two of my podcast with Abhijit.
Yeah.
Abhijit is MD of Ethnicity Matters. Ethnicity Matters in Canada is an advertising firm or a media firm that create advertisements and campaigns which are based on ethnicity. So, for example, right now there's a Go Train campaign for Diwali, that there's a Go Train with Diwali coaches running in Kitchener, or there's a BC, British Columbia Dairy Association Dudh ad where they are trying to encourage or people to consume more milk. So I think it's been part of all those campaigns. So Abhijit, excited to talk to you about this part because I'm a fan of a lot of classic advertising or marketing that happens. So a lot of fanboy thing will come up on those parts. So
Yeah, I'm happy. I'm happy to be back, and yeah, it's great to chat with you again. Go for it.
it's a continuation of same episode, guys. We are just breaking it in two parts.
True, true.
Even me and Abhijit, we have not moved from our seats. So Abhijit, you've worked extensively in Southeast Asia, and then you've moved to Canada. So how does advertising differ? Like, what is the consumer persona difference in both the countries? What are the fundamental changes?
Very interesting question because I think it is linked to how do corporations, global companies who exist across the world manage their marketing. You got to ask that question first because the agencies are only playing a supportive role. So let's take Unilever as an example because I worked with
Okay.
Unilever for maybe 80% of my career. So what happens is typically a big global brand like a Dove or uh, I would say Sunsilk. Sunsilk doesn't exist in North America, but it's become Tresemme, and things like that. We have a very well defined brand, and everybody recognizes its attributes, as it's called, right? So some things don't change about the brand wherever you go. What does change is a creative expression and how you communicate. So the advertising may get what's called trans-created because it's not about the changing the brand idea because the brand idea is the brand idea, but it's and the brand purpose remains the same pretty much. But what does change is how do you make it relevant to an Indonesian community or a Filipino community or a Chinese or Indian, and in this part of the world, Canadian, right? Or in the Hispanic market in the US, those folks and blacks. So, so I think the challenge global brands have is to do that well. And then you have this whole spectrum. If you remember, in the old days, there used to be IBM, and now you also have Lenovo. That's one end of
Yep.
the spectrum which do that very well because who've done it successfully. GE is another example. Because what used to happen is they had pretty monolithic, like it's the Lenovo computer is a Lenovo computer, right? And they're very functional in their approach. So functional advertising is a bit like that. It's easier to talk about. On the other end of the spectrum, there is a lot of emotional space that people ride on. So, for example, I would say Dove is a slightly emotional. It's not just a moisturizing cream or a bath soap because it's got some brand attributes which is something to do with they built it over years and years, which is it doesn't hurt your skin.
It's
And
soft. Everything
yes,
about it is it's soft. It's white.
exactly, exactly. So now there's a lot of effort behind how to land that idea in a market. We may think it's easy because it's well defined, but actually local culture, local sensibility, and local traditions sometimes get in the way. And sometimes just because there's a slogan or a tagline, it doesn't translate. So we have another end of the spectrum where brands actually have to become more and more relevant to the point that you have brands like Nestle today which don't even believe in a global positioning. So you have Maggie sauces and Maggie noodles in India, which is doesn't exist anywhere else in terms of their expression and how they relate.
And
Um,
Maggi is pure vegetarian in India versus a lot of South Asian countries, maybe in Pakistan, where Maggi is available in even in meat or
yeah,
some of that kind, right?
yeah. So you have to look customize it to the local culture. So I remember KFC in Thailand, uh, very big brand there. It used to exist in almost every street corner, almost as big as McDonald's. They started offering a lot of food which is catering to the Thai sensibility, like in terms of taste, including almost mimicking Thai food, right? Uh, and guess what? The Thais were eating that stuff because it's kind of it's strange that if you're in an American chain and you're not actually having burgers, you're having Thai food, but with a twist, right? It's got some KFC magic in it. So these brand managers, let's say, have that pretty tough job of trying to become number one or stay in the top two or three, trying to manage that whole process about brand communication.
No, so this was actually good because we talked about the nuances. But let's say that Canada is a market because right now, with ethnicity
Mhm.
matters, you're serving Canada as a market. Uh, so, uh, and if I do launch, let's say that Unilever has come up with a new product and it's working in US, but when they want to launch that product, say in Canada, so what are the specific Canadian complexities that come into the place? Like for example, let's say that in India you might have a lot of eyeballs or clicks, but then conversion is dependent on the purchasing power of the country, right? So, like,
Mhm.
what are those Canadian challenges that you might come across when you launch a new product?
Yeah. So what I specialize in here, I work with a very niche part of the market. So ethnicity matters. From the name, you can tell that we are talking about targeting our communication to ethnic groups. So the diasporas, whether it's Chinese or Filipinos or Arabs, Spanish, naturally South Asians as well. So we don't really have a situation where a global product or an American product is coming here to try and speak to any of the ethnic markets. Typically, US brands are coming to talk to all Canadians. So I'll give you an example. So let's say Gillette, right? Or let's say, for that matter, Pantene, right? You will not find too much effort being put into just talking to Indians or Chinese about in their language about Pantene. There's a reason for that. So PNG believes in very strong sort of centrally uh, managed brands out of Cincinnati or wherever the folks are, the ad agencies are. So uh, sometimes they experiment. So when the experiment happens, when the test happens, they call in agencies like us, and they say, you know what, we have seen in our research a lot of Chinese buy Crest, for example. I'm just cooking this up right now, or buy Oral B. They believe in the brand. Should we be looking at them? Should we be doing something specific for them? So I've been part of a project like that actually. When I first came to Canada, we were working with PNG and a multicultural sort of test and learn across variety of brands, and we quickly realized that that was the same situation where you have a well-defined brand in the US. You want to now take it and not just talk to Canadians, but you want Chinese Canadians, right? And there is no such thing in America. There was no Chinese Americans that we could look at learnings from. So I think the whole notion of Canada being mosaic and multicultural is now becoming apparent to not just Chinese corporation but American corporation. And they know the magic is in trying to win over segment by segment. So one size doesn't fit all because you want to resonate with them, right? You're speaking to them in their language. So that's really what I'm trying to say is that there is not too much there is not too much of freedom given to Canadian corporations, which are satellites of the US corporation. So, what a Ford is about is all defined back in the US. What a Chrysler is about is all in the US. Some of those ads get made in the US. So the opportunity exists only when they realize, hey, I got to sell Porsche cars to Chinese because they have the money. Then some light bulb goes off, and then they will say, oh, let's bring in ethnicity matters, or let's have a RFP, bring in 4 5 agencies and have a pitch. So I think the so we where we excel and where high help is, if we get an opportunity like that, then we go in and say, okay, how would we do it? How would we actually sell a high end car to the Chinese community? Does that make sense? So
Yeah, absolutely.
the lens we have. So in general, I would say most American companies are very highly centrally driven. There are exceptions, of course, but yeah, I would say most of them are centrally driven.
So let's talk to more specific your work, and I was able to find something.
Okay.
Uh, okay, so
If you go to our website, you'll find a whole bunch of things
yeah, I think I found this Go Trains Diwali
already.
campaign. Yep, the video is not there right now, but I mean you designed this poster, I think, and we might find something on YouTube too. But okay, we can see. But when the client would have come up with this brief to you, like what were your first thoughts? Like how did you put up this campaign that's there? And I
Yeah.
don't I mean I don't want to talk like a lot of confidential stuff, so to say, but
No,
whatever
there's nothing
publicly in the
confidential here. So it's it's just a public transit. They, they don't have magic masala in the KFC chicken kind of thing here. I'll tell you, it's a very simple process. So, firstly, let me just sort of step back a minute and say we had to participate. Metrolinx is a crown corporation. They have, when they need a new agency, they put out a tender. It's an RFP, and we pitched
yeah.
along with 15 or 20 other agencies. Very, very hard pitch, like a lot of presentation. We had to win the business first and become their what's called agency of record. So once you are an AOR, agency of record, then you start getting briefs like this. They would say, you know what, there is a Kitchener line on the way. There's Bramley and Brampton and all that, Mount Pleasant. A lot of South Asians are living in that corridor. They are all our
Yep.
commuters. There is a huge festival coming. Is there an opportunity to try and sort of recognize them, celebrate their festival so that they feel that they are recognized, and they feel good about being in Canada because their public transit is also uh, giving them that opportunity to enjoy. So that's I'm
Yep.
putting it very broadly, but that's the brief we would get. So we would start from scratch, and in this case, we had the opportunity to go back and say, what would that engagement or activation look like? And we ended up actually doing a. We said we need a train, and we need to wrap the train uh, with rangoli and designs like that. Inside the train, we want to create a atmosphere of Diwali party. We need lots of flowers and incense and some guy playing dhol, maybe somebody distributing chai. So our original idea was like it was you would think you are back in India, right? And it's like and it's meant for all
It's
Canadians.
Diwali, like
It's
people
Diwali.
blessing Diwali, the India wale Diwali.
Now the point is, this is where sensitivities come in. We are talking to maybe 50% of the passengers in the train are Indians. I'm just exaggerating because it's on the Kitchener line.
Yeah.
50% are not. So they are regular commuters. They could be from, Jamaica or Pakistan, or they're just Canadians, right? So there is a sensitivity that it's a commuter train. Everybody's on the train, and suddenly you're recognizing one community and celebrating it. Now there is a license to do that because it's such a big immigrant group.
Yeah.
Yes, we should not be doing it in a way that is insensitive, or some people are going. These guys are going crazy with Indians.
Like
No, right?
why are you doing Diwali on such a scale, basically?
Exactly. Or somebody goes to social media and says they have never celebrated my X festival in the same way. It just takes one crazy guy to just or one person, concerned person, to write. So what I'm saying is the way. So to answer your question, the way we come up with these creatives is they need to be fun, celebratory, but also not offensive. It's not like we're talking about the festival and what it means to people. It's not about rituals. It's not about the religious part. To keep away from all of that. So it's just a fun day. Now we know Diwali is both fun and ritualistic back in India. It's a personal belief in how you want to celebrate it. But being in a public transit, you have to keep away from stuff like that. So it's got to be something which is recognizing the big community and celebrating the festival. So so this is kind of just launched today, and the train is going to run for the next 5 days. So we'll get the feedback. To be honest, I don't know how successful it will be,
Is
but
it your biggest campaign that you've done for ethnicity matters or at a scale that you're looking at?
uh, yeah, this is not really an ad campaign as much as an activation. So the activation really is an event, right? It's a
Yeah.
kind of an event. I would say it is, because this wrapping a train up, at least a car, and then doing this. I had 4 5 TV channels come and cover it. They traveled on the train. They interviewed people on the train. So yeah, the scale was fairly massive. The only thing which comes close to this was uh, we had once worked with Samsung on one of a phone launch, one of their models. I can't remember now, but it was big because we brought in a band, um, rock band. They're actually a little old fashioned now. They're Canadian grown, homegrown brand called Josh, and they were also brand ambassadors. And we actually got them to compose original music, and they gave the jingle for the ad. So it was a fantastic campaign. That also had a lot of scale. So we took their flagship showroom in Eaton Center and had a big do there, big conference. There were celebrities, influencers. Yeah, I think these were the two which were big ones from a press activation, audience activation perspective.
I also got your BC Dudh campaign. Let me open it up. Let me show it to the folks, and then here, what was your motive behind doing it, or how did you actually ended up doing it?
Sure, why don't you go ahead and show it first? Yeah.
Yeah. I think
Okay,
this was the
so
campaign, right? You had.
yeah, it's actually it's actually we've been working with BC Dairy, and now it's called it's actually called BCA because it's Alberta and British Columbia together. Uh, we've been working with them for a few years, and I think initial years we used to look at their mainstream campaign, the general market campaign, and then adapt it. We would do a voice over, or we would do a like a supers. So we would try and make it ethnic friendly. So because it was going to run on PTC Punjabi or a ZTV or a Sony or one of these, or, or a video network, right? What has changed is that the milk consumption is so massive amongst the South Asians because of the Punjabis more than anyone else. As you know, they are huge into making dahi at home, and they drink a lot of milk anyway. And there's so many sweets made at home. Then they said, you know what? Adaptation of mainstream ad is not cutting it. We want to actually remind people how milk is integral part of people's lives and remind them that everything, all the goodies that they make are come from milk. So it's a bit like, you remember the Got Milk campaign, which is the classic, right? But this is for an ethnic audience, but it's on steroids
Yeah.
because we've gone all up. And fantastic food shots. You can see
The
amazing.
music is so good. Like the which is literally milk, milk,
Yeah,
milk, and
and there is no
amazing.
words. There is no words, right? You just have to. I think anyone can process this ad very quickly. They know this is milk, and it's reminding you of everything the milk is for. So I think all the credit for this, actually, I have nothing to do with it. To be perfectly honest, I know all about it because I also run the company. I'm the managing director now. But our creative head, Wasim Sheikh, he's brilliant, and he comes up with solutions like this, like where it's minimalistic in terms of talk. You don't need too much dialogue. You need to actually show, demonstrate, and for us, video is king because the emotions behind moving pictures is much bigger than just a print ad or a static banner. So yeah, I mean, so it just launched as well. I think it just launched maybe a few days back, perhaps just today. I can't remember, but yeah, it's very recent. So we'll see what the results are, because typically the KPIs around this are not the usual sales stuff, because they track sales anyway. This is the Dairy Farmers Association. That's the client. So it's actually owned by farmers. So end of the day, they're only looking at overall offtake of milk from the farms. But what they're really trying to do is to make sure that the milk consumption is sustained. It doesn't drop, right? That's the and that's why they spend the money to make sure that it's on top of mind. People will bring the milk home, but maybe they should bring some extra milk because they can make some
Make
stuff
sweets
they're
and
supposed
stuff,
to.
not just chai, but other stuff too.
And you know what? There is a reason why it's launched now. We're getting into a festive season,
Yeah,
so it there's a reason why it was scheduled to run.
Diwali to Christmas, people coming
Exactly.
into houses, enjoying their dinners, all of that.
Yeah. So category. This is a category advertising. This has got no brand in it. They are harder, but then at the same time, it could be also more fun because you're not trying to figure out, okay, this brand needs to become number one. It needs to be differentiated from another brand. No, here you're talking to consumers and based on their own basic need for this particular category.
Are you already moving into second or third level of ethnicity based marketing where first is voicing over in the language, then second could be like creating it, and third is like you're doing activations also in that way. Like, are you already in that level now?
Yeah. So this the BC dairy example is actually an original piece of creative
Yeah.
created for South Asian. So it is already there. Yeah. So in the previous years, we would take like imagery out of this campaign and actually be in supermarkets as well. So I think that's probably something we may be required to do, so that it's a more like a 360 and not just a, uh video. But yeah, we're already doing that. We're doing a lot of original work. So I'll give you two examples. Uh, Recently, we launched a commercial. One was just a funny, like celebratory Diwali ad again for TD Bank. The other one was actually it's running in the Cricket World Cup on Willow, um, where it's about talking to newcomers from India. So these commercials are all original, and there is no there's none of the first and second layer exists because these ads were made only for the South Asian community, the cricket ads, as well as the Diwali ad. So yes, we're already there. We're already there in terms of doing original work for specific community.
Okay, it's
If,
pretty unique as well because then you're targeting them better. You're such a big group that's coming to Canada, Indian and Chinese diaspora.
Correct, correct. We do quite a bit of advertising for. So Rogers Corporation is a client as well, and we handle all the three brands. This Rogers, Fido, and Chatter, and all the advertising that you see online is actually all created by us. Much of that is in English or Punjabi, sometimes, if needed, also Tamil. So those ads have nothing to do with the mainstream general market. They are very, very much. Maybe the offer is the same, like an iPhone based plan or a new iPhone launch, but the way it's presented, it would be completely original. So we are already there, and companies like TV and Rogers are actually wanting us to create stuff which works rather than wanting to have consistency across, because that's old school, right? That kind of stuff is old school. As long as the brand is not being distorted, it's the same brand promise, same presentation, same colors. We have very strong brand guidelines that are provided. So within that framework, you come up with interesting ads that resonate. And now, frankly, 80-90% of the budgets are being spent on digital. It has to work in digital first before you even think of cinema or out of home, because conversions happen
And
only in
digital,
one.
right? You can just click and you can have the
Yes,
conversion.
correct, yeah. So we
How
live in
does
that world.
marketing differ to Indian diaspora versus Chinese diaspora? Like, what are the key, or advertising, like, what are the key differences?
Yeah, it's very different actually. So funnily enough, when I first came to this country, we were working with a similar multicultural firm, but much smaller. And so I was doing everything. I was doing Chinese planning and South Indian planning. So then I learned that apart from the cultural differences, it's the way um people's approach to sponsorships and brands is very different. I'll give you an example. I think for the Chinese, it's really over the top in the sense that uh, they integrate brands into anything. Like they've been doing it far longer and than Indians. I think the Indians actually, the Indian community, that I think do not do not make it that uh, sort of ubiquitous. Like I'll give you an example. Like the Chinese brands, there's a talk show going on. There'll be like logos all over the place. It's like they lose that whole sense of professionalism or decorum because it's accepted. It's accepted that there'll be like five big posters behind it. So it seems like most of these shows are almost being happening in front of a media wall. Like always, brands are always omnipresent, and I found that a huge shift. The other interesting thing is that they are actually extremely digitally savvy. So we think we are savvy, and Filipinos think they are savvy, but we are nowhere near the Chinese. And there's
Why do
only
you
like,
say so? Like, what is an
I'll
example
tell
of
you,
that?
I'll tell you, I'm coming to it. The what has led to this is one app, and it's called WeChat. So the WeChat, if you have ever used it, I mean, we would, as non-Chinese, we would not even know 80% of its functionality because most
It's not
vendors.
available to us, right? I
It is
installed
available.
WeChat.
It is available. Anyone can download it. You can use it as a messenger. But most of these, like in China, it's huge, right? The ecosystem within that is everything is built into that. It's like you pay your taxes, you buy your air tickets, you pay your groceries, you do your banking. Uh, it's your WhatsApp, Facebook, YouTube, everything combined is like a super app. So what has happened is kids in China, they grow up not just digitally native, but they're WeChat native. It's like you gotta have your account by the time you're maybe 5 or 6 years old. I think it's crazy. So when they come here, um, yes, they speak a different language, and but for them, the Chinese marketing folks are very very savvy because they've actually had to create solutions within that environment. So the developer and it's very different from the Western world. So the developer market in China creating stuff for WeChat, it's highly different and specialized. So that's why I feel that I have a team. There are 7 or 8 senior Chinese planners because I would never be able to do it with non-Chinese folks. They are in touch with vendors back in China. They are in touch with vendors back in Hong Kong. They're getting games developed. They're getting sort of even small apps developed for a campaign. only possible if you speak Chinese, because it will exist within the WeChat ecosystem. There are other social media too, like Little Red Book, works a little bit like Facebook. It's a massive influencer channel. So if you're not in there, you wouldn't even find the most majority of the big influencers are in Little Red Book. They'll have their own WeChat handles. So what I'm trying to say is that there are
It's
different
a very
ecos.
different ecosystem. Like for
Yes,
an Indian, WhatsApp is only for chat. If you put anything else in WhatsApp, like even channels are not being liked right now much. People want WhatsApp to remain only for, even the WhatsApp payment has not picked up in India well.
that's what I heard. Yeah, that's what I heard. I think Geo was trying very hard to uh, create this payment gateway using WhatsApp, but uh, you are right. I think there's got a bit of a resistance because people feel that that's the last bastion of privacy without
Yeah.
any brands coming in. And yeah, let's see where that goes. But I actually not seen too many brands using WhatsApp properly yet. I mean,
Uh,
we are asked by clients, how would you use WhatsApp? We don't know. There is no ecosystem there, right? There's nothing there to suggest. Yes, we can do, yes, a bit of social media, like influencer, people who have huge following are part of a WhatsApp group, but they make a rare appearance because they're a celeb. Uh, and they suddenly say something and everybody goes crazy because they're all clicking on his link or her link. That happens, but that's how many? Hardly. Nobody is really using WhatsApp for that. Like they are all in Insta and other media. So yeah, it's a in a multicultural ad agency. If you walk into my agency, you'll find 6 or 7 nationalities. Even within the media department, there are at least 3 or 4 of us because there's the Chinese gang, there's the South Asian gang, and I also have some Hispanic speaking people. Recently, we just hired somebody out of Nigeria as well because we want to start understanding, not from a language perspective, but there is a lot of immigrants coming from Africa too. So, so yeah, interesting. It's an interesting market, and they're all
so
Canadian.
basically, if you were to do a Go Train advertisement now, let's say for Chinese New Year, your whole strategy would be 360-degree different than what it is for Diwali.
Completely, completely, because you are maybe the fundamental strategy is the same. If it's the same brand, you just want the same kind of results, the KPIs. But the way you would go about doing it and designing it, what the media partners can give you is very different. It boils down to what you can negotiate and how you can collaborate with media partners to create something exciting. And the media partners have different skills, right? So there are some big homegrown brands as well, media brands. They used to be traditionally strong in print. Over time, they've evolved. They've got a website. They've got influencers. They run a radio station. They are media partners for many major mall-based activations. Like there's a Pacific Mall in Markham where there's a massive presence of a lot of brands because they have an opportunity to interact, much like our malls back in India. But the Chinese do it very differently. Like it's culturally they're very very different. Yeah.
But thanks, Abhijit. Amazing. Loved it. Thanks for your time.
Thanks for having me, man. And yeah, just I hope we can chat.